The Olympus MJU II is widely considered one of the most overhyped point-and-shoot cameras out there. Mostly overlooked is its predecessor, the MJU I. The main differences between the cameras being the lens. The MJU I has an f3.5 aperture and the MJU II has an f2.8 aperture. So in this video I will be discussing the differences between the two. I'm going to be talking about the price differences and the features of the cameras and whether or not the MJU II is worth it over the MJU I. So I happen to own both of the cameras. I actually picked up the MJU I in Copenhagen in a flea market for about £5, and I picked up the MJU II for, I can't remember, like less than £10 at a car boot sale. So using the MJU I actually preferred the experience overall. The camera design's nicer, the way it sits in your hand and the shutter button is just much nicer to use than the MJU II. And shooting with the MJU I, the lens tends to stop down its aperture more than the MJU II. The MJU II likes to sit at f2.8 for as long as it can. It'll hold on to that 2.8 until it just can't shoot at its widest aperture, and then it'll stop it down when it needs to. But the MJU I is more likely to stop down to say f8 and get sharper images than at f2.8 on the MJU II. The design of the MJU II and the general feel of the camera, I didn't like it as much as the MJU I. It just doesn't really sit in your hand that well. The shutter button's much nicer on the first one, and no, I preferred shooting with the MJU I over the MJU II, which is funny because you'd think they'd improve it when they were designing a new one, but no, they actually made it slightly worse. The MJU II's lens is much better. Obviously with an f2.8 aperture it lets in more light, you'll get a shallower depth of field with this lens, but I generally found I got sharper results with the MJU I due to it actually stopping down the aperture, whereas the MJU II will just hold on to f2.8 for as long as it can. The MJU II uses a Spot AF autofocus system in the center of the frame. The autofocus works much better on the MJU II, especially in the dark, using the infrared light to focus. I got much more shots in focus with the flash in the dark with the MJU II over the MJU I, so that is an advantage if you're using it with the flash for like gig photography, stuff like that. At f2.8, the MJU II's lens is much sharper than the wide open 3.5 on the MJU I, and there's much less vignette on the MJU II, and generally you'll get softer edges on the MJU I versus the MJU II. So overall the lens is much sharper at wider apertures with the MJU II. So I took both of the cameras out and shot a roll of film. I shot some 400H in the MJU II, and I think I shot some Fuji C200 in the Mark I. So the MJU II has an f2.8, but the prices between the cameras are around £130. So you can pick up a MJU I on eBay for about £70, whereas the MJU II will cost you around £200, which personally I think that's a ridiculous amount of money for what it is. If you really want that f2.8 lens, I'd advise picking up an Olympus AF1, which shares the same lens as the MJU II, and these go for around £100 on eBay, so yeah, just go for an AF1. And then if you if you go for the AF1 over the MJU I, then you've only spent an additional £30, whereas if you went for the MJU II over the MJU I, you'd be spending about £130 for the same lens. So yeah, I'd go for the AF1, it's just not worth it for the MJU II. So in conclusion, my overall experiences with the MJU I and the MJU II, I generally preferred the shooting style and experience with the MJU I. I just like the way it feels, the design. Personally, I think it looks nicer. It's just a better camera to use. I just found it to be a nicer overall experience. And plus, if you lost or you got it damaged, you'd only have lost 70 quid versus the 200 quid with the MJU II, which I think is a lot of money to spend on a point and shoot anyway, seeing as it's all program auto and you don't really have any control over the settings. So yeah, I think the MJU II has been a little bit overhyped. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it or this helped you decide which camera to buy, please drop a like, give me a comment, that would really help me out algorithm wise, and hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.